So last Sunday we talked about what it does, or the divine feminine principle of nature, as the womb of creation, or the universal subjective mind, where all our thoughts, all our possibilities exist as potential. Once those ideas are expressed, they're acted upon by the law, and then they outpicture according to our beliefs. So this morning, what I want to talk about is how our beliefs get there. And that is the divine masculine principle of nature, or how to use it. So we are dealing with a universal creative power that is forever taking form, and it's also forever leaving form. Why? Because our thought patterns and our belief systems are always changing. So the objective, or the divine masculine principle of nature, moves through the divine feminine creative principle of nature, and this creates an energy flux within the creative field. And the power of that movement is equal to the embodiment of the thought set in motion. So I'll give you an example of that. When I first crashed through the double doors at the Center for Spiritual Living in Fort Lauderdale, that was way before I ever imagined I would become a minister, I heard these new ideas about the principle of giving and receiving. And I had just come out of a quite colorful divorce and gone back into the workforce, and my first paycheck was $12.90. And I had $5 left. And Dr. Arlene Bump kept talking about how when you give, you receive. When you give, you receive. And so I thought, well, what the heck? Let me try it and see what happens. So I threw the $5 in the collection plate. And the next morning I got up and I went to the beach to meditate, which is my favorite place to meditate. And guess what I found in the sand? A $5 bill. So our thoughts induce a movement of energy based upon our beliefs. And they move through the creative field, which is mechanical, and it's also intelligent. So the law knows that it's moving, and it knows how to move, but where it moves depends completely upon where we are in our consciousness. So everything that happens in the objective world must have something in our subjective beliefs to support it in order for that expression to balance. Dr. Ernest Holmes tells us, it has been proved that by thinking correctly and by a conscious mental use of the law of mind, we can cause it to do definite things for us, through us. So in order to use the power correctly, we have to understand how it works. So the divine masculine principle of nature is simply the conscious use we make of that intelligent. And it outpictures depending upon our belief, our faith, and our conviction. And then it reflects back at us the outpicturing of those beliefs. So it can happen in the physical body, it can happen in our body of affairs, it can happen upon Mother Earth, or even globally. What we do, what we outwardly are, and what we are to become depends upon what we believe. And this is the way we use the divine masculine principle. So think of it like a giant buffet filled with chafing dishes. And in front of those chafing dishes, there are labels. And you, because you have the power to choose, get to fill out the label. Would you like abundance? Would you like wholeness? Would you like creativity? Or perhaps a loving relationship? So the biggest obstacle blocking our conscious evolution is a lack of knowledge about the creative process. We have to open the chafing dish. We have to have enough faith in ourselves to discover a deeper realization of life. So the mind makes choices based on millions of pieces of data, far beyond our conscious comprehension. But decision-making is based upon consciousness itself. And it's dominated by energy patterns called attractors. And scientists have observed these little babies, and they form something called critical mass. And that emerges from the seemingly unmeaningful pieces of data to become what is known as race consciousness or race mind. So, for example, here at the High Desert Center for Spiritual Living, we envision a world of love, abundance, and gratitude. In the United States of America, we have something called a Constitution and a Declaration of Principles. Declaration of Independence. I'm focused on science of mind, principles. There's also a global consciousness. We have the United Nations that come together to try to promote peace upon our planet. There are also what's called colloquial patterns. I remember when I was a travel agent, I did a lot of skiing out in Colorado, and people would always say, "You bet, you bet, you bet." And when I got to North Carolina, it was, "You're fine, you're fine, you're fine." And here in New Mexico, I've learned that red and green isn't necessarily about the month of December. There's something called chili. And once you understand that Christmas really means red and green chili, then you've officially become a New Mexican. Thank you. So we laugh, but unfortunately, the negative collective beliefs can interfere with our evolution. My ascension coach, Sandra Walter, says that until the unknown becomes known, the mind, the ego, and the emotions tend to recreate the same default reality. So prejudice and hatred are learned behaviors, but they can be unlearned. And the world as we know it hasn't completely embraced this idea of mental practice. Many people are still wondering how to use it. Sometimes I get confused about that. Maybe some of you do also. But what I understand is know that we must do more than just announce the principle. We must actually demonstrate it. One of the things that attracted me to the science of mind teaching was the knowledge that it is scientifically provable. How many of you are familiar with Phineas Parkhurst Quimby? That's quite a mouthful. 5,000 documented healings. In the beginning, he used mesmerism and hypnotism, only to discover that through the conscious thinking, we can embody new subjective beliefs, thereby giving new direction to the power. So this is not a rose-tinted spectacle teaching where we make believe that everything is okay. Wrong conditions do exist, but it's important to understand that they cannot remain unless there is a subjective belief that supports them. There is no doubt about the immutability or the availability of the law. It's right here and it's right now. But the probability of our expression as human beings must flow through the power of the mind. So consequently, the experience must unfold through our thinking. If we can change our consciousness, which is simply the sum total of our beliefs, false conditions can fall away, no matter how big or how small. But it's up to us to change our beliefs. And so we start right where we are in this present moment, in our Science of Mind class, the thing itself, we've been working on attracting the right and perfect parking places. So who really cares about a parking place? Not that important. But once we get to do that and we get that in our consciousness, then the parking places open up automatically. So this is our goal, to really get clear about our thinking. If we plant an apple seed, we can't grow an orange tree. If we plant thoughts of lack or limitation, we can't expect to experience abundance and health. Dr. Holmes says about right thinking, it is like the sunlight of eternal truth, bursting through the clouds of obscurity and bathing all of life in its glory. So the power of right thinking negates everything unlike itself, just like the darkness disappears when the light moves in. We are surrounded by an infinite intelligence, the ultimate chafing dish buffet where all the lids are open. So let's affirm together, I've got the power. You've got the power. We've got the power to make all our dreams come true. And the great news is we don't have to worry about how it works. All we have to do is embody a greater conscious awareness of the fact that it is working. So how do we do this? Well, we have this wonderful tool here called Spiritual Mind Treatment. And if you look inside your programs, you will find a brochure or flyer that has all the steps of treatment written down for you. And I encourage you to take that home with you and read it and study it and practice it. So I'll ask my students, how long do we treat? Until we have a demonstration, right? So until our subjective beliefs actually manifest through our objective world and create our experience. There's a new light coming into the solar system, and it's aimed at transforming our collective consciousness. The veil between spirit and matter is very thin. All the power in the universe is awaiting our discovery. But it's only through our conscious thinking that we can make use of the divine masculine principle. And when we do that, our experience will shift and we'll be able to create a new world. As the great man Henry Ford said, if you think you can do a thing, if you think you can't do a thing, you're right. So the time has come to express a greater degree of livingness, to answer our divine calling. And like the song says, if we have faith in ourselves, we've got the power, we can do anything. Thank you, and namaste.